the endocrine system. And so now, you know, and one of the things I've kept mentioning is how we've got the control, okay? We're going to see that, of course, you know, the goal is maintaining this homeostasis. And so now, let's think about how we have this control, how we're going to see what the pituitary gland is actually going to release. So, one of the things, when we look at the control, I've got my area of my hypothalamus, which is that, you know, primitive region, and then I have cerebral control. Cerebral. What part? Think about the higher areas of the brain, okay? So, what we're going to be paying attention to for this, our body has many centers within, especially like the brainstem region, but we've also got other areas that kind of monitor conditions in our body. So if we're monitoring conditions in our body, what do you think we're kind of monitoring? What information's getting picked up? What type of stuff could be happening? We could be picking up hormone levels, and that would be based on blood flow to the areas of the brain that could pick it up. What other stuff do you think it could be picking up? Definitely got to pay attention to an injury, because with an injury, we have the possibility of blood loss, and blood loss affect. Now, when we say blood loss, let's think about a injury where, yeah, we got a little bit of significant blood loss. Let's not put the person in a position where maybe the blood's like spewing and they got 2 minutes, okay? Let's just think about a situation where maybe there's a bad gash or cut or something, okay? And the blood is being lost through that cut or the gash. What other areas of the body would that affect? What organs would it affect? My heart, because my heart's got to pump the blood. Yes, of course, the kidneys. How about parts of like my immune system that have got to get cells there to make sure they function? What about respiration? Could respiration be affected from the cut? So now we have got to monitor conditions, not just inside the body, but outside. We got to pay attention to stuff such as water level in the body. We have to pay attention to heart rate, respiration, pH of the blood, temperature of the body, the functioning of my kidneys, the functioning of my intestinal system. Do you see where I'm going with this? We have to monitor the internal condition of the body 24/7. I won't go through saying the rest. Okay? 24/7. We also have to pay attention what's happening outside the body. For example, if we had that cut or that gash, and the body now has to meet the demand for that blood flow, okay, for example. So we're monitoring these conditions all the time. So what we're going to find, just like when we talked about the nervous system, reflexes. This time, my reflexes are termed neuroendocrine because, like I keep saying, I'm going to have information from these other parts of the body get picked up by this hypothalamus, which would be the nervous portion, and then have it communicate with my pituitary, my endocrine portion. So it's a reflex just like we've known before. We have a stimulus, we get a response. Does that make sense? So, what we're going to find, we get feedback from target organs. So if my target organs are stuff such as the thyroid, the parathyroids, the adrenals, the thymus, which is kind of a whole different story. But you see where I'm going with this, ovaries, testes, okay? So, do you guys remember negative and positive feedback? Okay? What happens with negative feedback? Think about how they usually talk about it. They usually represent it with like a thermostat control on the wall. If it's too cold, you turn up more heat. If it gets too hot, you turn it down. Okay? Negative feedback keeps everything within limits. This is what the body wants to do. The body wants to keep all these processes within a normal range. If something goes up, negative feedback will make it go back down. If it goes down, negative feedback will make it come back up. Negative feedback, do you see where it kind of keeps it within a value that's acceptable? It either makes it go up, make it go down, up, down, just like a thermostat on the wall. Positive feedback, what happens?
It can be deadly.
It can be deadly.
This is what's already going on.
It feeds the cycle. For example, oxytocin, because that's one of our hormones. Well, comes time to give birth, and the uterine contractions start. At first, it's sort of like, oh, that was kind of interesting. And you just keep going until it happens again. And it might be like, oh, hello. And it's a little more intense until it gets to the point. Because what's the body trying to do? That baby has been a foreign object for 9 months. And for 9 months, believe it or not, your body has been trying to get rid of it. Now it finally can. So these contractions get strong enough to the point it gets to go and spit that baby out. Okay? And that was based on this feedback loop from the uterus to the brain, to oxytocin, to the uterus, to the brain, to the oxytocin, and basically every time more oxytocin got released, making the contraction stronger, stronger, stronger until poof, baby's out. That fed the cycle. Does that make sense? It didn't try to control it. It increased it. When we have positive feedback happen, especially at a time of blood loss. This is why at a time of blood loss, at first, the body is creating all of these reactions to try to stop the blood flow, and at the same time, make sure the heart has enough blood to pump to other parts of the body. Okay? But if the blood flow, if the blood loss is too great and the body can't meet that demand anymore, the heart's gonna stop, which is death. Okay? So in a case like that, the body can't meet the demand of that blood loss, and at the same time trying to stop it's not helping it, and it's feeding the cycle. In the beginning, it's trying to help, but then it becomes detrimental. So for the most part, anything that is positive feedback is detrimental to the body. The way that we want to maintain homeostasis is with negative feedback. So these target organs, they will send information saying, oh, I need to release some of these chemicals, and the chemicals get released. Blood picks up that there's chemicals there, and we stop the release. And then we don't have enough, and it picks it up again, and we get the release, and then it gets into the blood. Blood gets detected, and we stop the. Do you see how I'm on a negative feedback? It's controlling that release of those chemicals. So we work on these feedback loops. For the most part, under normal conditions, they're working great. We're maintaining homeostasis. We're meeting demands of the body, and things are good. Okay? When this stuff gets out of whack, we have problems. And I'm sorry, I was told that is not a proper term. When things don't go as needed, all right, it can be an issue. This one right here, growth hormone, because it is the most abundant from the anterior pituitary. With growth hormone, it doesn't target a particular organ, mainly because we're going to find that we have receptors pretty much all over for growth hormone because of what it does. One of the things that will happen in the liver, there are receptors for the growth hormone, and what it wants to do is help stimulate insulin-like growth factors. These are also known as somatomedins. The time that these are very important is at the time of egg meeting sperm, fertilization occurring, and we get development of the offspring. Now, as you know, at that point, okay, one cell becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4 becomes 8. This is a time of rapid growth of that organism. So, at that point, we need the growth factors because it's important for those cells, which are going to develop into tissues, to develop correctly. So it can stimulate the liver to release an insulin-like growth factor, an IGF. Ever heard of that? If children or people are deficient in IGFs, it can affect their development, their growth, their ability to fight off different sicknesses and that sort of thing. And in some cases, they may actually have to go get transfusions of these factors if they're deficient. But what would it mean to be insulin,